your head, Tom Dooley. Hang down your head and cry. Hang down your head, Tom.
We are back on Taking Care of Business on Kern Radio Newstalk 1180. Our guest by phone is 2nd District Board of Equalization member George Runner. George, before we get to you, I have to ask Clay, why the heck did you pick that song?
Because I'm hanging my head down right now because of all the taxes I paid, and if I die, I'm going to pay even more taxes.
No, if you die, you won't pay any taxes.
Somebody's going to.
That's for
right,
sure.
You'll be done.
Yeah,
I'm done.
That'll be it. George, with your expertise, before we get into the presidential sweepstakes, which I really want to talk to you about because I'm curious to see what your take is on it. What do you think about, because, eventually, somewhere down the line, Republicans are going to have to make some kind of move here in California because, we're kind of, stagnant. I mean, we've all people like Gene and Sharon and Shannon can do is just, be a voice for the opposition, but we really don't have any effect because we don't have the numbers. What's it going to take in California for Republicans to make a dent and change this around? Before
you answer that, George, I have an answer. It's either going to be an earthquake or a tsunami along the San Francisco and Los Angeles coast.
I tell people, I think my 2nd district would make a great state. So,
exactly. Yes, it would. Yes, it would.
But I think the challenge is the fact that we've got a couple of issues. One I hope is going to get resolved a bit through redistricting. I'm anxious to see how that plan's going to come about. I'm hoping that we'll see far more competitive seats. And as a result of that, then people's voting records and philosophies will make a difference when it is that they're running for office.
I'm not that overjoyed with that redistricting commission. We went to the meeting, and I was not thrilled with that meeting at all.
Well, I've watched the ones that are happening. We have one here in the Antelope Valley tomorrow. The bottom line, though, is the old system that started where the legislator lived or the politician lived and then built districts around that was very problematic and wrong. At least this time, there will be an effort. There's guidelines. There's clear guidelines in terms of how it is that you create then these communities of interest. And quite frankly, if indeed those guidelines aren't adhered to, there's a process then to which then you take issues to court. I think at least I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that'll at least create a better plan that will create more districts that have ability to swing one way or another based on a philosophy. Now, that being said, I don't know for sure what's going to take in California. I mean, I was as discouraged as anybody over the fact that whatever that wave was that started last November didn't quite make it to California. And that's why I'm hoping that maybe what we'll see is a reaction from Californians about this ongoing left-leaning state that is going to be so out of step with so many other states. How long do people want to live with the second highest unemployment rate of the nation? I mean, people should want to solve that. How long are we going to decide that we're going to have less and less taxpayers and more tax takers in this state? Eventually, I think people just say this is enough, and I'm hoping that is at the next election cycle.
God, I hope you're right, George. We're having a conversation with 2nd District Board of Equalization member George Runner. So, George, let's talk about something a little happier. The national sweepstakes.
It's amazing to watch.
Yes, it is, and it's starting to happen. I guess this weekend there's a big meeting, and apparently the Republican nominees that are there, I think there's 5 of them there, or I should say potential nominees. It's almost like a love fest. They're taking shots at Obama, but nobody's saying anything negative about each other, which is kind of nice for a change. But what do you see happening?
It's kind of interesting. We are... it's coming faster and faster for when it is that we have to make a decision in regards to who's going to be, our pick for the Republican nominee, and everybody is very much still bunched up together. And I think that's one of the reasons why it is that you get somebody like a Donald Trump who gets out there and starts stirring the water and saying a bunch of populist things, and all of a sudden he gets a lot of attention. But I think it's going to. We'll see what's going to take place. I couldn't tell you, and in fact, I don't even know. There's probably a list of folks who I have interest in, but it's a list. It certainly isn't. Boy, I'd like to see this one person really handle this. And so I'm watching all of it very carefully and listening carefully.
Well, I think Tim Pawlenty is the only one that's really said he's going to run, and there's a debate coming up this coming Thursday.
Yeah, and I think that Pawlenty is certainly one that I think I'm interested in watching. I think there's others that are still out there that are flirting with the issue, and at this point you can't tell right now whether or not some of those people who are on those edges are flirting with it because they like the additional attention it gives them in their other business endeavors, whether that be a Sarah Palin or a Donald Trump or a Huckabee, for that matter, or whether or not they seriously are looking at that, saying this is what I'm going to be doing.
Well, there's two guys that I really like, and they've both been called racist. One is Adam West, the other is Herman Cain, and they both happen to be black.
Yeah. And those are it'll be interesting to see if an individual like that can do and catch fire, when it comes down to it. Now, and the key for that is going to be how much exposure can they get? Who's going to be watching them? What are they going to be able to do?
Sure.
The problem with that is you get a Donald Trump out there, and he goes to Las Vegas and drops a few F-bombs, and it's all over the news. And so it's hard for other individuals who I think are much more prepared and I think have the capacity to lead, who don't stir the imagination of the media the way that Trump does.
Yeah.
Well, Biden dropped a few of those also, if you remember.
Right. Yeah,
this is true.
Yes, he has.
George, I know you're pressured for time. You've got another engagement at 2:05, and I just wanted to thank you for taking the time today. And I also want to thank you and Clay both publicly for something. You two are, well, in my time on the radio, you two have been my partners on different shows, and I want to thank you both publicly since I have an opportunity with both of you on at the same time.
Well, that's great. It was always a pleasure.
Yeah, it was always fun.
Your pleasure. I'm still with him.
We've been having a conversation with 2nd District Board of Equalization member George Runner on Taking Care of Business. Thank you, George, for the time.
Okay. Hey, thank you, guys.
Take care.
Have a great afternoon.
Bye-bye.
Clay, you said there were a couple of issues you wanted to talk about.
Wow, there's one issue I really want to talk about. There was a great article today in the Bakersfield Californian about, it was actually written by Terry Hilliard. He's with... He has his own company, a management company, and he was talking about Kern Health Systems, the waste of money, and bad management. And if you have a chance, look at today's newspaper, the Bakersfield Californian, and read about that.
Well, what did he say? What was the gist of it?
Terry made interesting points and pointed fingers at the supervisors for not following up, and the fact that the Kern Health Systems really has wasted millions of dollars. They sued Terry's group, or one of Terry's doctors, and it appears that they ended up paying that doctor over $1 million. So that was quite interesting. Also, this past week, I had lunch with Russ Allred. Russ has a business called Sunbelt Business, where they buy and sell businesses, and he helps businesses, and he shows you how to do marketing to get the most out of your business, which I found really interesting. And hopefully we're going to have Russ on in the near future. And if you're a small business, you want to check with the Small Business Administration. They recently hired their new director, Brandon Martin. Brandon is the son of George Martin, who put on the business conference here, and Brandon had a lot to do with that this last business conference. He's a sharp young guy.
Yeah, Brandon's been a frequent guest on our show, and we're going to have Brandon on the 14th.
To talk about the Small Business Administration?
Yes, we'll have Russell Johnson on in the first portion of it, and Brandon Martin in the second portion of the show.
It's a great opportunity for small businesses to get free consulting.
Yes, it is. Definitely. And what else did you want to talk about? You had another issue?
Actually, I don't want to pay any more taxes. I'm tired of that, so I need to call George on the side and see if we can figure something out. I don't want to get audited either. That's the other thing.
Yeah, well, that's also a big thing. One issue I wanted to talk about real quick. There is an event coming up on May 11th. The Tehachapi Tea Party is going to have Harold Pease on. Harold has taught political science at Taft College for over 30 years, and he's going to speak about the U.S. Constitution. What a novel idea to have somebody willing to talk about the Constitution.
We read that recently.
Yes, we did. I think more politicians need to read it. Thank you very much for being with us. We're going to have an interesting show on the redistricting next week, and we will be back in 167 hours on Taking Care of Business on Kern Radio Newstalk 1180.